You're listening to the Holistic Nootropics Podcast, your home for holistic, evidence-based cognitive enhancement strategies.
Tony, welcome to the Holistic Nootropics Podcast.
It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So this is going to be a really fun conversation because we're talking about one of my favorite topics that I love to talk about, even though I, for the most part, don't know what I'm talking about, and that is mushrooms. So you're the mushroom man. You are the founder of FreshCaps, and I've really fallen in love with your with some of your mushroom products. I've been drinking the mushroom coffee, using the mushroom focus elixir, and that has a little bit of a coffee edge to it, which I like. As opposed to other mushroom products I've used, your stuff feels like it's just way more potent. And I'd love to just kind of start off with, your story in how you got into mushrooms, how you found, the motivation to start a mushroom company, and really what you guys do differently than most other mushroom companies out there.
Sure. Yeah, no, I'd love to talk about that. And I don't know what it is about mushrooms, Eric, but I've been interested in mushrooms my whole life. It's honestly something I can't really explain. I've just always found them super intriguing and interesting and just thought they've always had so much to offer. So, even as a kid, I remember walking around the forest and I'd be looking at mushrooms, almost like finding Pokemon or something like that. And then I remember asking my mom to take me down to the garden center to buy a mushroom growing kit, which, at the time didn't really exist. Although, you can definitely get those now and people can grow mushrooms at home. So, I've always been super intrigued and interested in mushrooms. And it was probably about 10 years ago now that I started getting into growing mushrooms, just learning how they grow, starting to grow them at home on a small scale, starting to see how you can take, tiny little fingernail worth of mycelium and grow pounds and pounds of mushrooms. And I started getting into it more and more. And, that just continued to snowball. Eventually, we started our own small scale gourmet and medicinal mushroom farm. We started the website, FreshCapMushrooms.com, to kind of teach other people how to grow mushrooms as well. And I just started noticing this wave of people being interested in not only how to grow mushrooms, but about just mushrooms in general. And it was around that same time that I really started looking into mushrooms for health and mushrooms for immune health and all these other things that mushroom can do, not only fun to grow and interesting, but also what they can do for our bodies. And at the same time, I was realizing that a lot of the products currently on the market didn't really have all those beneficial compounds that actually give mushrooms their special properties. So we thought we could do better. We thought we could provide better mushroom products to the people that need them. And that's basically how we got started. So in 2017, we started to sell our first mushroom supplement product, which is Thrive 6. And the response to that was just amazing. And we just continued to grow the brand and the business ever since.
Yeah, your mushrooms, the mix I'm using, it just feels like it has more of a kick to it. Like it feels like it does the things that I've read mushrooms do. There's other mushroom products that I've used that it just seemed like, okay, I was taking it and I was almost forcing myself into the placebo of like, it's working. Is it working? I think it's working. If I think it's working, that must mean it's working. And I don't know if it was working. And I feel like, in just a little bit that I've used of yours, again, I've used this focus product, and I've personally been trying to wean off of coffee. And then of course I get some mushroom coffee thinking that it didn't have coffee in it and I had coffee in it. So now I'm back on coffee, but it feels like it's a little bit better because it's mushroom coffee. But then even the focus product, like I took some of that stuff and I gave some to my wife, and she used it at like 3 p.m, and she's super sensitive. And she was just like up to like 11 o'clock, just working nonstop. And I had a very similar thing. And she's like, what did you give me? Did you give me coffee? I'm like, no, there's absolutely no coffee in this product. So right. Clearly there's something that it must be the purity, or I know mushroom quality can vary, depending on how you grow them. There's clearly something that you guys are doing with your mushrooms that, did you sprinkle some substance in there? But I'd love to, I know that, that the way that you can grow mushrooms really or the way that you can grow and package mushrooms, is very important in the overall product. So maybe you can talk a little bit about your guys's method of getting mushrooms out to customers.
Yeah, and for any of the people listening and for yourself as well, like if you've ever tried mushroom products and you really haven't felt a difference, there's a really good chance it's because the mushroom product you're trying doesn't actually contain any mushrooms. And usually when I say that, people are kind of surprised, like, what do you mean? How can somebody sell a mushroom product that doesn't contain any mushrooms? And it's what's happening across the whole mushroom supplement industry. And it's one of the biggest secrets, biggest unknown things in the mushroom supplement industry is that a vast majority of the products out there don't contain any mushrooms. What they are is basically rice or grain or some kind of filler substance. And the reason that is because some people figured out that, hey, we don't have to complete the whole mushroom life cycle. We don't actually have to grow the mushrooms. We can just grow the mushroom mycelium on grain, grind that up, call it mushrooms, and sell it to people. And this is what's happening all over the place. And without getting too technical, I guess I'll kind of back up a little bit and just explain what mycelium and what myceliated grain is versus something called fruiting body and why that makes such a big difference. So, as people know, mushrooms start from spores, not seeds. And the spores eventually sporulate into something called mycelium. And if you've ever been walking through the forest and you lift up a piece of moss or you crack open a log and you see that white filamentous stuff growing throughout the substrate or under the moss, that's mycelium. And that can be kind of thought of as like the roots of the mushroom. And eventually what happens is that mycelium will turn into these little fungal knots, and that will eventually create a fruiting body. And a fruiting body is a technical word for what we all know as a mushroom. Just a simple example of this. I have two things. If anyone's listening to this, basically right here is a jar of grain with mycelium on it. And in my other hand is a fruiting body of a lion's mane mushroom. And you can see these are obviously two very different things. This is primarily rye grain that's got the mycelium over it. But when you shake it up and you break it up, you can see that it's mostly rye grain. It doesn't actually have almost any mushrooms in there whatsoever. Whereas this fruiting body, the actual mushroom part of the mushroom, contains all of those beneficial compounds that actually make a difference. So I'm talking about beta-glucans. In the case of lion's mane, you have your hericenones and your erinacines, those compounds that are beneficial for brain health. In reishi mushroom, you have triterpenes. So all of those beneficial compounds, or the things that really give mushrooms superpowers, are contained within that fruiting body. So that's what you got to look for if you want. And that's probably why you're noticing a difference, is because we use nothing but the fruiting body of the mushroom, which actually contains those beneficial compounds. And if they're properly extracted, that's when you're going to feel those benefits, aside from taking something that's primarily rice grain or rye grain or even oats sometimes.
So if I hear you right, a lot of these other companies that are selling mushroom products, they are selling the mushroom product, but you're getting essentially like the grain that it's grown in, or the grain that it's grown within, and it's almost like a cost saving thing, because you can probably grow a lot of grain for a lot cheaper than you can, and a lot quicker than you can like an actual fruiting body of a mushroom.
Exactly. I mean, mushroom cultivation, yeah, it's a long process and it can be kind of expensive, but growing the mycelium out on grain is cheaper. And the mycelium itself is actually pretty beneficial. There's a lot of beneficial compounds within the mycelium. So if you get like a pure mycelium extract, it can be pretty good, obviously. But again, going back to what the product is mostly is grain, because it might be like 80 to 85% grain starch and just a little bit of mycelium. So, and that's why if you look at some of these products, you can look at 5 different mushrooms: chaga, turkey tail, reishi, lion's mane, and they'll all look and smell the same. They'll look and smell like oats or rice or whatever. That's because they're basically oats or rice. Whereas you use pure fruiting body products, they all have their own individual characteristics and taste and flavor and smell and obviously effects. So yeah, I mean, myceliated grain or mycelium on grain is not necessarily a bad thing. It's not nefarious. It's not bad for you, but it just doesn't have that effect. It's kind of a lot of filler, and probably not the best way to spend your money if you're looking to buy mushroom supplements.
And what about the extraction process of these mushrooms? Like, it feels like when you're doing it at scale, does it require any extra, I don't know, like preservatives or fillers or things like that could take away from the, from the quality of the original mushroom, or how do you guys work with that?
Yeah, that's a super good question, actually. And to back it up a little bit, so these compounds that we're using that our body interacts with, glucans, triterpenes, et cetera, these aren't easy to get out of the mushroom. So if you were to just eat the mushroom, your body has a really hard time breaking that down, because mushroom cell walls our bodies aren't able to actually properly break that down and extract the compounds out of them. And that's why we need to perform extractions to actually pull those beneficial compounds out. And there's two ways to do it, depending on what compounds you have or what compounds you're trying to get out, but they're both supernatural processes. So the main one that we do is called a hot water extraction, which is basically like making a tea. So you can imagine if you make a tea or you can make coffee, you soak it in hot water or you pour hot water in it, and the hot water is able to break down those walls and pull out those water-soluble compounds into the final extraction. And then that water can be spray dried into a powder, which is what you see in our products. And beta-glucans, the compounds that are responsible for the immune boosting benefits of mushrooms, are water soluble. So if you do make a mushroom tea or you use just a hot water extraction, it's going to pull out those beneficial beta-glucans. But there's other compounds in mushrooms that are valuable that aren't able to be extracted with hot water. And those are compounds like triterpenes, but those are alcohol soluble or fat soluble. So you can pull those out with an alcohol extraction, which again is just, totally natural process, an alcohol extraction. So typically what is done for mushrooms, if they have both of those different compounds in them and you want to get the most, it's something called a dual extraction. So you do an alcohol extraction and a hot water extraction, and then combine those two final products to get a dual extraction, which has all of those beneficial compounds together. So yeah, to answer your question, there's no like weird chemicals or fillers or anything to get those compounds out. It's just water and alcohol.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And it's great to preserve the naturalness of the product, because
right.
That's the thing about it, the supplement space is it's filled with so many products, that you think about a product like mushroom, you think like, oh, it's natural. Oh, I eat mushrooms. Oh, I could drink mushrooms as tea. And then you get it as a powder. And, a lot of times you'll look on the label of a lot of these different products and it's like sodium dioxide and, all of these different preservatives. There's more preservative than there is actual product. So, I try to stay away from the stuff like that, but it sounds like you guys don't use any of that stuff.
No, not at all. And actually, even for the capsules, that's kind of hard to do. A lot of the times for like mushroom capsules, you'll see other ingredients there that are used as what's called a flow aid. And that's basically just something that makes it easier for the product, the mushrooms, to like flow into the capsules. But we formulated ours so we don't even need any flow aids whatsoever. So yeah, it's just the mushroom extracts and nothing else. And again, for a lot of these flow aids and stuff, sometimes they're not bad. Like some of them are just made from rice flour or whatever, but it's just, extra stuff that you might not need to put into your body, or you might not be aware of the fact that you're putting that into your body. So yeah, we like to keep everything pure and natural. And luckily with mushrooms, you can.
So do you recommend, or I shouldn't say do you recommend, but let's say, I'm in a spot where I'm a student. Okay. And, I got a full-time class schedule, I'm trying to have a life. I'm trying to like stay up on my grades, or I'm like a high performing executive. I just need my brain to work faster. Like, what do you think is a good mushroom for, or mushroom stack for just making your brain work better, like to feel sharper, to get rid of the brain fog, to increase memory focus? Being a mushroom expert, what would you do if that was you? Not to say, running a mushroom company isn't you, but, let's say you were running a different company. You were on Wall Street. I don't know. What would be like your mushroom of choice for high performance?
Well, definitely the mushroom of choice for nootropic or for cognitive function is a mushroom called lion's mane. I've already mentioned it a couple times, but lion's mane is amazing not only for its ability to support the immune system, but also for its ability to support cognitive health. And that's because of two special compounds inside of the lion's mane mushroom called hericenones and erinacines. And again, for anybody watching this, the video of this is a lion's mane mushroom right here. It almost kind of looks like a brain, which is kind of cool. And there's actually been lots of interesting, double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical studies on lion's mane and its effect on cognitive function. But of course, on top of that, there's all sorts of anecdotal evidence. A lot of people that use lion's mane mushroom for that cognitive effect. Of course, with any supplement or any nootropic or anything, like if you're not doing any of the other things right, it's not going to have as much of an effect. So like if you're like sleeping 4 hours a day and eating like garbage, like lion's mane mushroom is probably not going to make a big difference. But like if you have all that foundational stuff already, and then you're layering something like lion's mane on top of it, a lot of people find some incredible benefits, especially for like brain fog and just mental clarity and overall feeling of being able to be more productive. I've experienced this myself actually with lion's mane mushroom, and it's one of my favorite mushrooms that I'm always using. But there's other mushrooms that might help in other ways, and I like to kind of think about them as like their own kind of superhero or like superpower. So, for example, if you want to improve your cognitive function, one thing you can do is just get better sleep, right? I mean, sleep makes a huge difference in how we feel throughout the day. So one mushroom that's typically used for relaxation and kind of helping your sleep cycle is a mushroom called reishi. The scientific name is Ganoderma lucidum. And this is an ancient mushroom. It's been used for thousands of years. It's been called the spirit mushroom. It really is an amazing mushroom. And a lot of people use it for sleep, which in turn kind of helps, your function during the day. So a lot of the times these mushrooms can be used in different ways, be stacked together, used in conjunction. One more mushroom that's kind of the same ilk is called cordyceps mushroom. In nature, it actually grows on bugs. It's kind of like a zombie fungus, but luckily it can be cultivated, which is what we do. And cordyceps mushroom improves the way that we utilize oxygen. So it really helps with energy and endurance. And of course, as you can imagine, if we're being more efficient with our oxygen use, we're getting better exercise, that's going to help with cognitive function as well. So a lot of time it's a balance, and everybody's physiology is different. And again, disclaimer, I'm not a doctor, just a guy who's super stoked on mushrooms. So yeah, a lot of people find different benefits by using these mushrooms in different ways. But like a good place to start is to think of the character of the mushroom, whether it's typically used for energy or immunity or sleep or cognitive function, and start there and see what works for you.
And are there any like specific ways of using the mushrooms to get like in combination? Do you have any like cheat codes with the mushrooms you use? Like, in the morning I'll put a little lion's mane with some cordyceps. At night I'll throw some, to boost my sleep. I'll throw some reishi with some turkey tail or something. Or is it just kind of one mushroom for one time a day? And assuming that, everyone's different, everyone has their own kind of outside circumstances. But again, being a mushroom master like yourself, do you find that that there's any kind of mushroom, I guess the cheat codes, for lack of a better way to say it, that you find help for certain things?
Yeah, for sure. So if you wanted to look at, mushrooms in general, sometimes they're not as acutely acting. So some people will feel the effect right away. So like, for example, they want to concentrate better, so they'll have some lion's mane, or they're going to work out, so they'll have some cordyceps. But for other people, it's kind of like a longer, it's a natural product that takes a little longer to come on, maybe like 2 weeks of consistent use. So if that was the case, it wouldn't really matter too much what time of day you take it. So again, everybody's different, but what a lot of people do, and like what I do myself, is say I want like a pre-workout or something. I might mix some cordyceps mushroom into my smoothie. If I want to relax, I might add some reishi mushroom to kind of a nighttime tea, or take some reishi mushroom at night to kind of help me calm down. Lion's mane, typically use it kind of in the morning to kind of help me, get my brain firing up and getting my brain firing on all cylinders. So you definitely can use these different mushrooms at different types of day. But quite often what will be more the case is just kind of using them over a longer period of time. What I've actually personally found the most benefit from is just a blend of mushrooms. So quick personal story, like I'm the kind of guy, I used to get sick all the time. Like this was like 5 or 6 years ago, but anytime there was anything going around or like any kind of cold or flu or whatever, I would always get it. I'd be sick like every 4 months. It was like clockwork, right? Which meant obviously my immune system was just not operating properly for whatever reason. But I kid you not, since I started taking mushrooms, just like a blend of mushrooms, I have not been sick since. And that's been like, I want to say like 5 years now. And, again, this is totally anecdotal for me, although there has been some research done on it. But for me, it's totally anecdotal. And it's like, I could feel it coming on, and I would like super dose my mushrooms. And then, within a couple days, it would just never quite get me. I would never quite get fully down. And it's like your immune system is ready to kind of just take anything on a lot easier. So, and that's the thing that kind of groups all mushrooms together. They all have these things called fungal beta-D-glucans, which are actually able to activate the human immune system, which is why they have all these other cascading effects.
Yeah, I've definitely heard of the immunomodulatory benefits of mushrooms, specifically, I believe it's chaga, turkey tail. I think I've heard cordyceps is like that. And the immune system is interesting because, especially in this time of COVID, everyone's talking about, well, how do I boost my immune system? And, being a holistic practitioner, one thing that I notice is that people have problems with too much activated immune response that leads to their autoimmunity, right? And it feels like something like a mushroom like chaga or one of these immune beneficial mushrooms is a good way to almost keep the immune system in check, make it go when it needs to go, but help bring it back when it needs to calm down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that. Actually, that's a really good word, is immunomodulation, and that doesn't necessarily mean boost your immune system. I mean, it could mean that, but sometimes it kind of reins the immune system in a little bit, right? So immunomodulation supports your immune system, and it has this amazing property where it can both, support an underperforming immune system, but also attenuate an overactive immune system. So, of course, this is going to be different. I mean, like, there's obviously people with serious autoimmune conditions, which, might want to obviously consult with a doctor, natural healthcare practitioner, to see if it actually, if this is the right thing for them to do. But in general, yeah, mushrooms are known as an immunomodulator, and they have that amazing property of both supporting and attenuating the immune response. And when you think about that, like before COVID anyways, immune system, talking about it was like kind of boring. People were like, oh, whatever, it's just doing its thing. But when you think about it, that's really the first line of defense and like the foundation for like everything else in our body, right? Because if we have a poorly functioning immune system, nothing else is going to work that great. So it's really foundational. It's important. And I think that's one of the things that gives medicinal mushrooms such promise in all of these other effects that they have on us.
Yeah, it's really exciting, especially because I've seen the research with a lot of these different mushrooms, and it's like, whether it's the immune system or, one thing that excites me about lion's mane is BDNF. You can literally grow more brain, which is really cool, which again, you can't feel that happening. But if you're somebody who's trying to learn a new skill, or you're trying to, you're trying to get to the next level in whatever you're doing, it's such an important aid to have with you in that journey. Yeah.
No, and I'm really glad you mentioned that, because I mean, that is definitely getting into the weeds, but with BDNF or brain-derived neurotrophic factor, I mean, the fact that like this mushroom can assist in creating that is really, really cool. And I'm sure you're aware, or your listeners are aware of, Dr. Rhonda Patrick just released this like mega article on BDNF. And in there, she talked about lion's mane mushroom and referenced some of these more recent clinical studies that was done. So if anyone wants to dig a little deeper, it's a great place to check it out.
Yeah. And then, I mean, you throw on top of that, I remember I saw somebody talking about, their preferred stack before they go to bed is reishi and lion's mane. And because the reishi calms you down, but then the lion's mane almost kind of gets your brain going in the background. So you can, cause I wear the Oura ring. So I'm tracking my REM sleep, my deep sleep. And my REM sleep is it's just so hard to get my body to flick on to REM, but that's such a restorative mode of sleep. And it almost requires your brain to be a little bit more active at night. So it almost seems like, I mean, again, I have no data to back this up, but something like lion's mane, if you're using it in the day, can almost maybe, and I don't expect you to confirm or deny this, but could be a tool for helping you with these different stages of sleep as well.
Oh, definitely. And, I think that's just a good point, that there's such a blue ocean of research that can be done on these things. I mean, like, medicinal mushrooms are not a new concept in some parts of the world, but like in North America, it's still kind of like, people are like, what? Like, what's a medicinal mushroom, right? So there's so much research that can still be done. That's super promising. Like, I mean, there's a perfect example right there. Like, how does lion's mane affect REM cycles, or does it, right? Like, could that be beneficial? A lot of people say it does help. So let's look into that and put some data behind that and see if we can actually figure out what's happening there, right? So yeah, super interesting topic to dive into.
I'm just curious, it almost seems like the mushroom thing has exploded in the last maybe 5 to 10 years, but is this like a new thing, you think, in the US, and you're in Canada? We won't judge you for that, but is this like a newer thing, people being into mushrooms like this? Do you know where it came from per se? Are there like more, I guess, traditional cultures that have been using mushrooms in this way that, now in the biohacking space, it's like, you got to have a mushroom. You got to have a mushroom in your supplement drawer, right? But I don't remember, maybe I was too young to remember, but like in the 90s, anybody ever talking about mushrooms other than like mushrooms on a pizza, right? So I'm curious, are there other cultures where mushrooms were used in this sort of way that you know of?
Oh, definitely. I mean, if you go to China, for example, and you look at traditional Chinese medicine, I mean, mushrooms were, it's just a no-brainer. It's part of the medicine, materia medica, right? They've been using these mushrooms for, some of them literally for thousands of years. We talk about reishi mushroom, right? Has been more recently been cultivated, but like for the longest time been wild harvested and revered and used as for all sorts of different ailments, right? And there's a really interesting history with all of these mushrooms. But even today, like if you're to go to Southeast China, how deeply mushrooms are ingrained into every aspect of the culture is absolutely incredible. They're grown everywhere, they're respected everywhere, their extracts are used, and they're prescribed, and it's a very common thing. Like, it's not surprising at all for people to be using medicinal mushrooms in China. It's relatively new in North America, and I think that's just because some people start using it, and they tell their friends, and then more companies are created and they're promoting these products. And I think it's one of those things that has its own energy because it works. It makes a difference, right? I mean, if somebody was to try and introduce a new supplement product that didn't do anything, like that would die out after a couple of years, right? Whereas mushrooms seem to have their own force behind it. And, we even see it in our own company. Like, we get people phoning us all the time saying, oh my God, like, who would have thought, like, I tried mushrooms for this. I haven't been able to make a difference for the longest time, and mushrooms are all of a sudden making a difference. I'm telling all my friends about it, and their friends tell their friends, and more people get into it. And then you see things like, Paul Stamets on Joe Rogan's podcast, those kind of things happen, and more people learn about it at once. So it's one of those things that's getting more popular because it has value and it works, and people are getting a lot of benefit from it. So it's just going to naturally get more popular in North America.
Are there any other supplements that you find certain mushrooms work well with? Like for instance, maybe like something like cordyceps and magnesium, for instance, or maybe like lion's mane and L-theanine. I personally know of a nootropic stack that uses lion's mane with like 8 other nootropics. L-theanine, choline, phosphatidylserine, things like this. I'm wondering if you know like of any other nootropics or supplements that pair really well with some of these different mushrooms.
Yeah, for sure. And this is more Tegan's area of expertise. She's my business partner, also my wife and co-founder of FreshCap. But actually, we did just develop 3 new products, and 2 of them use mushrooms as the main ingredient, but pair them with other ingredients that seem to work really well. So for example, with the Focus blend, like you were talking about earlier, we have that extract of lion's mane mushroom, which is great for cognition, which is why we call it Focus. But we've also paired that with a spearmint extract, and not just any spearmint extract. This is a clinically studied spearmint extract called Nootropics, and it's actually been studied for benefits for cognition, for focus, for productivity, for memory. And those 2 things together seem to be really acutely and long-term powerful. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense, right? Like, what are the aspects of mushrooms that pair well with other supplements? You just find supplements that kind of rhyme, right? So lion's mane is good for the brain, spearmint's good for cognition. You put that together, it's likely to be a very powerful thing. Similar to the nighttime blend that we just came out with called Unwind. It has reishi mushroom in there, which again is good for relaxation, for sleep, for calmness. So we've paired that with other things that are good for relaxation and sleep and calm, like magnesium, like L-theanine. There's some peppermint in there and some chamomile. So it's a really soothing beverage. And it seems like all those things together really help with relaxation and sleep. So again, that's a really great thing about mushrooms is each one kind of has their own character. So you can easily pair it with things that also have that character and get kind of an effect that is synergistic in nature.
Yeah, mushrooms are such an interesting texture to these formulas because they're not an herb, they're not a mineral, they're not an amino acid, they're like this fungus. And I believe it's like what we know about fungus right now. It's really in its infancy, like I think about this kind of dichotomy of fungus in these medicinal mushrooms are amazing. The plant medicine mushrooms are out of this world. And then, but you have this other side of fungus, which is like the bad fungus, right? Like the candida that grows in your stomach, or of course, like the poisonous mushroom. So it's such a wild topic that, that I know, at least like in candida research, they just discovered this thing. Like, I think they called it the micro, something about the microbiome, but like the fungus microbiome. And it's even more complex than the bacterial microbiome. So it's such an interesting world that fungus lives in.
Yeah. I mean, it's a kingdom, in itself. So it's different than the plant kingdom. It's different than the animal kingdom. And I think it's very underrepresented in the research and the literature. But it's very interesting to look at. And I think you made a really good point when you said there's some mushrooms that provide health and medicinal benefits. There's some mushrooms that will, literally take you on a magical adventure and do all sorts of crazy things to your brain that also have a lot of promise in the medical field. And then there's other mushrooms that will literally kill you. So it's a very interesting kingdom to be looking at, and they can have such powerful effects on human physiology that and on the environment too, which is a whole other topic. But it's something that I think we should be looking at a lot more.
Now, do you know any mushrooms, maybe, one of the ones you sell, or any mushrooms that are out there that are good for the heart, like good for heart rate, blood pressure? I've really been digging into this idea of heart rate variability contrasted with heart rate. And just trying to use that as a way to tap into parasympathetic, sympathetic. It's real geeky, but I've even though like I'm into brain health and I'm into this nootropics thing, I think there is a heart-brain connection that's very important. So I'm wondering if any of these mushrooms work well with the heart.
Yeah, definitely. Again, not being a doctor, I always hesitate to recommend things, but I would say the two mushrooms that I've had studies done in this area and are obviously showing some promise is reishi mushroom has had a lot of studies done for cardiovascular benefit, and maitake mushroom has had studies done on like blood sugar, blood pressure, and all that kind of stuff. So the two mushrooms I would suggest looking into if you're interested in that would be reishi mushroom or Ganoderma lucidum, and maitake mushroom or Grifola frondosa. The interesting thing about maitake is it's one of these mushrooms that's both a powerful medicinal mushroom, but it's also a delicious gourmet mushroom. So, people can also get benefits that way as well. If you're into cooking, there are some of these medicinal mushrooms that you can get benefit from and enjoy them as well in a gourmet form. And maitake is one of them. So it's kind of interesting.
And do you, this is kind of a weird question to ask, but do you actually grow your own mushrooms like at your home, other than like your work mushrooms or?
So yeah, I grow mushrooms at home for fun. It's like a hobby of mine, and I still like producing a lot of content to teach other people how to grow mushrooms. That was really surprising to me. Like when I first got into this, I started the website because I thought like I wanted to like document what I was doing. And when I found out how many people were actually benefiting from that and like starting to grow their own mushrooms at home, like it blew my mind. And it's continuing to grow every day, especially through the pandemic. Like there's so many people growing mushrooms at home, which I think is really cool. So yeah, I still do that on a hobby scale for sure. But yeah, the mushrooms and our products, I don't grow at home. We work with,
Sure.
Lots of organic growers for that. Yeah.
Yeah, this pandemic has really brought out all of our inner like farmers, or gardeners. I think like one of the like hottest selling things during like at least at the beginning was like gardening sets, and all these websites that teach you how to garden at home were just blowing up. Yeah,
no, for sure. Yeah, no, I think it's great. I mean, like, why not learn to grow mushrooms at home or grow other things? I mean, a lot of people think it has to be super complicated, but not necessarily, right? Like, we've got one video teaching people how to grow oyster mushrooms in a 5-gallon bucket, and it's super easy to do. Anybody can do it in their backyard. And it produces pounds and pounds of delicious oyster mushrooms. Lion's mane is a mushroom that's pretty easy to grow. You can get lion's mane kits and you can grow them on your countertop at home if you wanted to. It's probably not the most efficient way to do it if you want to supplement with it, but it's still kind of a fun project, teaches you about the life cycle of the mushrooms. And then at the end of the day, you end up with some lion's mane mushroom you can enjoy. So highly recommend.
And you have videos about that on your website?
Yeah, mainly on YouTube. It's on our website as well, but like if you want to learn about growing mushrooms, our YouTube channel is definitely the place to do it. We don't sell any growing supplies anymore. We used to, but we don't. But if anybody ever reaches out to us and they want recommendations on like, hey, I want to start growing mushrooms, like what's a kit to use or something, we're happy to point them in the right direction.
That's awesome. That's so cool that like you started off just teaching people how to grow mushrooms, or even just kind of documenting your own journey in growing mushrooms. And now you're selling mushrooms, and you're selling really good mushrooms too, which is cool. Yeah,
we're excited about it. It's been a fun journey. I mean, like I said, when we first got into this, I was kind of like, weird because like it was super niche and like nobody was really into this. But now it's blown up into this big thing where, like you said, even in your field, like people need to have mushrooms in their stack, right? And it's becoming more and more popular every day. So it's really cool to see, and we've had a lot of fun putting it out in the world.
Yeah, that's great. So the best place for people to go if they want to pick up your mushrooms is freshcaps.com?
Yeah, just freshcap.com. We're also on Amazon. So either of those things work. And that's where we're at.
Cool. So we'll have links to your store, to the website. Before we sign off, is there anything people should know that I didn't ask about mushrooms, about you, about FreshCap, that they should know?
I don't think so. I mean, if any of this piqued your interest or piqued your curiosity, I encourage you to kind of just learn. There's lots of great information. We got a lot of good information on our website as well. I understand mushrooms can be kind of an esoteric topic, and they're a little bit more difficult to understand. But if anybody out there has any questions, feel free to reach out, and we're always happy to continue the conversation.
Cool. So again, we'll put all of your contact information in our show notes, and anybody who wants to get in contact, buy some mushrooms, they'll be able to do all that directly from our website and in the show notes that we post for this podcast.
Awesome.
So
thanks so much for having me on.
Absolutely. This was a great conversation. I feel like I learned so much about mushrooms, and whenever I have these conversations, I just get super excited to just go do the thing that I talk to the person about. So like now I'm just super motivated to just wind the day down with some of that unwind mix that I got, nice. and just double down on some reishi mushroom. So, yeah, this has been great. And I'm excited to go grow some mushrooms. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but now I'm like thinking I need to go start one of these kits. I was just about to sign up, but a question: when you grow mushrooms, you can't do that in the sun, I'd imagine. Does it need to be like dark and cold, or?
No, actually, surprisingly, some mushrooms do need light. They don't need light like plants do, because they don't photosynthesize. So you don't need like direct sunlight. But they do need nice kind of ambient lighting. Most mushrooms anyways, like button mushrooms, you can grow them in the dark and the cold. But mushrooms like reishi or lion's mane, they do need a little bit of light to flourish. And if they don't get that light, they'll grow kind of weird and it just won't be right. So they don't grow in the sun like plants. They need humidity, fresh air, generally relatively cool temperatures, and a little bit of light.
Right on. Cool. Well, this has been very exciting. This has been a fun conversation, Tony. Thank you so much for joining me today. We'll be sure to link to all of your resources, again, at holisticnootropics.com. And for more, be sure to check out the show notes to this podcast on holisticnootropics.com. Thank you so much for listening and watching. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
Thanks for listening. For more brain-boosting info, in-depth articles, and show notes, check out holisticnootropics.com.